Cheers guys, Epyx911. So here we are. This is something I'm going to call Night at the Arcade. It's going to be a weekly playthrough of arcade games. I know there's tons of playthroughs on YouTube about modern games, and usually they're 50, 60, 70 parts in length. You know, they take you from the beginning of the game through to the finish, whether it's Dark Souls or Diablo. A lot of those games are really long. The beauty of arcade games is most of them can be played within 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. So I thought it would be kind of cool to just have playthroughs of arcade games. And it's an extremely geeky thing, I realize that. So if this is not your cup of tea, now's the time to stop viewing and move on. But I'll be taking requests on games that you'd like to see. You know, providing some anecdotes and stories behind the games as they relate to me and my life and my history, my experience with those titles, which I think will be kind of cool because I grew up in a pretty cool, unique area for arcade games. We're also going to touch on some modern stuff just to show you the flexibility, why it's still so relevant to build yourself one of these. A, it keeps the history of arcade gaming alive, and B, you don't realize the full impact, the visceral feel of arcade games with an emulator alone. Emulators can't convey the feeling. Even buying yourself an arcade control stick and attaching that to your computer, at the end of the day, you've only captured a bit of the essence of it, what it was to have an arcade machine. And I know I'm waxing nostalgic here and I'm sounding extremely geeky about the topic, but it's something I'm passionate about. And honestly, once you assemble a cab like this, and trust me, my first cab was horrendous, and I haven't deleted that project. It's there for the whole world to see, warts and all. It was a monstrosity, to put it bluntly. This is a cab that I'm a lot more proud of, but it took me 3 attempts. This was my 3rd attempt. So it's definitely, I went from knowing nothing about woodwork to being fairly competent, and it's led to all kinds of cool things. Framing, all kinds of carpentry and projects, whether it's making cabinets or doing things that I didn't think were possible because I dubbed myself, you know, somebody who was never good at woodwork. But that arcade community at arcadecontrols.com, those guys are top frickin' notch. They are so helpful. And in turn, you want to help others when you've been helped on that website. And that's what I try to do, and that's what I want to do. So you guys have any questions, I don't care how dumb you think the question is with regards to building one of these things. They're there to help, and I'm here to help. But with that said, let's take a look at what one of these cabinets can offer you, because it's not until you build one, until you put authentic joystick controls together with a monitor, that this thing gets the full spirit of what it once was. Alright, let's take a look at a modern game. Let's start off with a game called Raiden 3. Now, Raiden is one of my favorite arcade shoot-em-ups of all time. I'm a massive Raiden 1 and 2 fan. Raiden 3, fantastic. Let's turn up the volume a bit. This is a game that I never actually played in the arcade first. I played it on my arcade before I ever saw it. I ended up seeing it in a city called Richmond. They have an Asian mall and a Japanese arcade, and they featured Raiden 3, and that's where I saw it for the first time. So hopefully what I've done with the camera, guys, I'll just turn the volume down a little bit, is I wanted to create that over-the-shoulder feeling that you'd have when you went to the arcade with a buddy. When it was his turn, you'd kind of stand behind him or beside him, and hopefully I've mimicked that view for you guys with the over-the-shoulder look here as we play this game. So again, this is Raiden 3. This is a 2005-2006 game. You can see I've got the high scores. My buddy's got a few of the other ones. And some of the double player stuff we've never done. Lots of cool game modes. Let's get on with it. So we'll just do up to the first boss. In future episodes, I'll take requests and I'll play games through to completion, but this is one that, a full game, you know, take me about 20 minutes to play, so we won't do that this episode. Just want to show you what the cab's capable of. So this is a 2D game, but really takes advantage of my arcade computer's capabilities. I've got a 3.5 gigahertz Core 2 Duo inside, and a special graphic card that allows me to do modern resolutions. It's basically an ATI card that's had its BIOS overwritten that can do refresh rates, because standard refresh rates are basically 60 kilohertz on all modern graphic cards. Arcade games, however, used a wide variety of refresh rates, and some of those old-fashioned low resolutions use refresh rates of 15 to 31 kilohertz, which is way lower than modern video cards can handle without modification. So what's cool about the card that I have from a company called Ultimark.com in the UK is that it can handle those 15 kilohertz refresh rates right up to the modern ones like this one. So you can see here, it can handle the rate and refresh rates no problem. And in a few minutes, once I beat the first boss, I'll show you an older game and how it handles those refresh rates. And why that's important is it's one of those things that I was talking about, that emulators don't really capture the full spirit of what these games were like. Because modern LCD monitors and even a CRT monitor not running at the 15 kilohertz refresh rate of those old games will distort the graphics. It'll warp and skew stuff. And keep in mind that certain color combinations were only possible because the CRT could create third colors by pairing certain color combinations closely together. On an LCD, the colors completely change. Spy Hunter is a perfect example of that. The color from the original CRT to what you would see with an LCD monitor are totally different. It almost looks pinkish, whereas on the original arcade, the Spy Hunter colors are actually a vibrant cherry red. So that, to me, you know, LCD monitors aren't critical in building an arcade cabinet, but for me it was a must. I wanted the full authentic feel. So that was stage one complete. So that's a modern game, guys. Let's take a look at an older game. So I'm going to load MAME here. And again, this is why I went with the trackball, not just because I like the trackball control, but I didn't want to have to pull out a mouse every time I was going to switch games. The trackball keeps the feel authentic and gives me the flexibility that I can't get from a front end. You know, I can switch back and forth between modern games, you know, and do Windows-related tasks that I couldn't do with a front end. So let's take a look. So we went with Raiden 3. Let's look at an actual horizontal game. Let's take a look at R-Type. R-Type's another awesome series. I've got 3 games here: R-Type, R-Type 2, and R-Type Leo. This is a horizontal game, and with this monitor, the scan lines will actually go in the proper direction. This here is what R-Type was meant to look like. Cannot be captured on an LCD screen. Passable, but not the full experience. And yeah, that was ass, guys. Like I said, this first one is just going to show you guys a variety of games. I'm actually pretty good at this game. I can beat this game, but that was absolutely unacceptable ass maneuver. When this game came out, guys, it blew minds. I know it's hard looking at this game now, I believe it was a 1987 release. The vibrant, large bitmaps, the horizontal orientation, it honestly took arcade gaming to a next level. It uses a Motorola processor, 68,000 I believe. And it gave you 5 drastically different levels. Gorgeous, gorgeous visuals. I mean, look at these colors. This is a game that would still look at home on a modern tablet or a, smartphone device. It's definitely aged well. R-Type Leo, which was the 3rd entry in the series, more of a spiritual sequel, takes the graphics even to another level. There is nothing, guys, like the feel of standing in front of one of these things. And if you didn't live it, you could still appreciate it. I don't think it's mandatory that you were part of the arcade generation like me. This is the kind of thing that modern games like Street Fighter 4 will add a whole new dimension to the gaming experience for you and your buddies. And I know I sound extremely geekily passionate about it, but it's the truth. Having 2 people standing at one of these things is like a gladiatorial fucking experience, guys. You and your buddy, Street Fighter 4, you cannot mimic the feel with gamepads on a couch. It's like being the Emperor's spoiled nephew sitting up in the stands, or do you want to be the gladiator out in the arena? Visceral, in-your-face action. To me, that's the difference between standing in front of one of these things and holding a gamepad while you sit on a couch. So there's level 2. Let's move on. Let's do a bit more old school. So we're kind of going back in time here. Puyan is a fantastic game. It's vertical. So let's stick to horizontal games. Pang. Again, another game that would be totally at home on a portable device like an iPad or a smartphone. It's a puzzle style game. Each time you destroy a bubble, it breaks up and divides into smaller bubbles. We'll just do a couple levels here. It's got those cutesy graphics, very much like Rodland, which is another cutesy, vibrantly lush graphical game from the 80s that has really aged well. So if you guys see it, you're probably seeing the refresh rates, some flickering on the video. Obviously, I've got a full progressive, crisp, clear signal because I'm filming at 1080p 60 frames. And some of these original arcade games, remember when I was talking about the 15 kilohertz refresh rates? They don't run at the standard 60 frames per second refresh rate. Some of them run at odd refresh rates, 30, 40, 57 frames per second. That's going to cause a bit of those lines that you see on the recording. But trust me, in person, it's smooth. So we're about at the 14-minute mark here. I'm just going to show you one more modern game to end this with. This is going to show you the capability of the spinner device. I showed this on the previous video. It's called Typhoon 2001. And it's based on Tempest 2000 by Jeff Yak Minter. And if you guys don't know who the Yak is, for us guys who grew up with a Commodore 64, Jeff Minter was the legendary hippie, Yak-inspired programmer who had a bovine slash ungulate theme to most of his video games. And he created for the Jaguar probably the best game that that system had, and that was Tempest 2000. This is a spiritual version of that game and takes full advantage of a spinner. Check it out. You can see the sensitivity. I can give it a twist and boom, my spinner rocks around. In fact, I probably got to adjust the sensitivity down a few notches, but I should be able to do okay with this. And of course he got me. But this is a modern game. It's not massively 3D, but it's still so relevant. It's such an awesome experience on an arcade cab with a spinner that you again cannot recreate with a gamepad. Do I think there's still a market for arcade games? Absolutely. And I could do a whole show about the demise of the Western arcade, because arcade machines are still going strong in Japan. And I know the blunders that we made along the way. There's reasons for why arcades failed in the West. But there's no reason why they couldn't make a comeback in one form or another with games like this. There you have it, guys. So that's the first Night at the Arcade episode. Again, just wanted to share my passion for the range of games that still make an arcade machine relevant. In future episodes, we're going to take a look at Sega Genesis emulation on an arcade cabinet, Super Nintendo, Commodore 64 and Amiga. A lot of those games find new life with joystick controls and a cabinet. Admittedly, you're not going to be playing a JRPG on an arcade control, but I'm telling you, a platformer like Mario Brothers is super at home on an arcade machine. So what I'd like to do, guys, is hear from you. Leave comments below and let me know the types of games you'd like to see or introduce me to. You saw my MAME list. That was just my favorite section, and it's probably got about 200 plus games. Just to put that into perspective, MAME has over 6,000, and if you're not counting duplicates and clones, you're still probably looking at about 3,000 to 4,000 individual games, which is massive. So there's lots of untapped gems that I've never even discovered. So let me know what you'd like to see. I'll play future games more or less to finish, because I'll pick shorter ones. For example, Black Tiger. I didn't even get to this game. I'm just going to load up the start. This is probably my all-time favorite arcade platformer, bar none. This is a game that I could win on 1/4. A full run-through takes about 2 hours. Think about that. 1/4 gave you 2 hours of entertainment when you were good enough. This game was very RPG light. I wouldn't say it went as far as like a Castlevania Symphony of the Night, not even close. There's no stats, but you had weapon upgrades, you had armor upgrades, and you had to balance your allocation of health potions to keys to be successful in this game. It had some amazing boss fights, and as you can see, the graphics were colorful, vibrant, and completely in your face. Here we go, guys. I will leave it there. We're almost at the 20-minute mark. Leave me your comments, what you'd like to see, and I'd be happy to show you. Again, if you have questions regarding the building of one of these cabinets, hopefully a lot of those questions will be answered in the video series that I'm going to be doing about building an arcade cab, where I basically will build a vertical version of one of these from the ground up to show you how doable it actually is. Sure, you need a bit of elbow grease. Sure, there's some fundage involved. But honestly, guys, compared to even a console hobby addiction where you buy the console and a few games, for that same cost, you could have an arcade like this with thousands of games at your fingertips. Curious to hear what you guys think? As always, cheers. Leave your comments. Like if this is the type of video you like and you want to see more of. And subscribe if you want to stay in the loop for when I do that build. Again, the type of stuff I cover: games, reviews, tech reviews, anime reviews, and arcades. As always, cheers, guys.